What does it cost to build in a unified network in your home in 2024? What type of things do you even need to be thinking about? And the big question is it even worth it? Well, today I want to talk about this. I want to break this down and go over some of the things I think about when building in a network and doing a network design and how it relates to cost. Hey guys, it's Tim Trish from Ethernet Blueprint. Thanks for stopping by. Now, I know firsthand from building a house 5 years ago that this process can just nickel and dime you to death, or at least that's what it feels like. Every little thing you add to the home starts at $1,000 and goes up from there. And everything you take away that you don't need really only tends to save you around 100 or 200 bucks. It's not an equal match. So should you spend some of your hard-earned money on building in a network? Well, let's break that down and talk about it. Okay, so before we get to the cost portion of the video, I kind of want to just talk about the alternative. Some things I've seen in the marketplace, at least here in the Midwest, time and time again. I mean, this has been something I've seen over and over and over as I've helped people try to expand and get their Wi-Fi working better in their homes. Now, if you want to skip this part, that's fine. I have chapters down below. Feel free to skip it. But I want to kind of paint you a picture of just things I've seen in the industry. And before I get into this, I just want to let you know, I'm not trying to lump all home builders or all homeowners in the same box. This is just something that I've seen when people don't know to ask the questions that they're forced to live with after the house is built. Now, I realize every builder is a little different, so you don't have to defend your builder in the comments or anything like that. However, I would be interested in hearing your comments as to how the experience worked for you. Did you have to ask for Ethernet drops, or did they just come with your build? Times are changing, so I hope there's a shift in how builders build homes, but at least here in the Midwest, it's something typically, or in a lot of cases, you have to ask for. Okay, so let me just kind of paint this picture for you. So you build the home, and like many new home buyers that are building a home and it's semi-custom or fully custom or just a spec home, whatever, they focus on the pretty things. And that's completely understandable. That's the stuff people are going to see. Do you do quartz or granite? What color carpet do you want? Wood stains, even what your toppers on your staircase pedestals are going to look like. I mean, it's really fun to do that. It's very exciting to see this process come together. And there's even a portion of the build typically where you walk around with the builder and say, I'm going to put a TV here, I'm going to put a TV here, we definitely want some power here. It's really cool. And in the case of my builder, I got what I thought was 10 Ethernet drops. He included 10 drops that I could move around and place in my home, which was awesome. I was like, great, I don't have to pay for a bunch of these. They're already included in my build. However, with a little bit of back and forth and me asking questions and what type of cable is it, I actually found that my builder was calling Ethernet drops. He actually meant coax drops. Where do you want cable boxes in your house? And so I had to go back to him and say, I want Cat 6 pulled in my house, and I want them in all these locations, and I had to pay for that. But if I had not asked and I just took what I got, I wouldn't have got anything. I mean, it really is kind of a bummer. And I think that happens to a lot of people. So you get the house build, you focus on all the pretty things, you get whatever the builder is going to give you, and then, it's a couple weeks before you're moving in, so you call the cable company. It's very exciting. You streamed at your old house, so, maybe the plan is not to get cable. Your plan is to just stream, use your smart TVs. It's this is all coming together, right? But what happens is the cable guy comes, he installs a router in a corner of your home, maybe, a bedroom or an office or something like that. And, you're like, yep, that'll work. That's fine. He puts this little modem router combo thing there, and then you go to town, right? No problems. However, it doesn't usually take very long to realize that you don't get the coverage that you need. It's a little weak outside. Maybe you're going to have some wireless cameras and you're not getting the coverage there. The bedroom TV on the opposite side of the house is really struggling to stay connected and it's buffering. It's just not a good experience. And so, you're kind of forced to be like, all right, well, clearly the ISP router sucks. What can I do? So you do some Googling, you find out you can get extenders or the mesh system, if you will, to boost your signal around your house. It seems to be the answer you're looking for. You do some research, you'll buy the one that has the best comments, you come in, you hook it up, you watch a YouTube video to figure out how to get this thing set up correctly, and presto changeo, after a day of fidgeting with it, you got good coverage all over your house. Awesome, right? You've solved the problem. However, again, even having signal everywhere in your home, you're still having some problems here and there. Maybe the TV buffers are a little bit, still, the cameras are still glitchy, you still get a little cutout with your Zoom calls. I mean, why is that the case, right? Why is this happening? Now, it may not happen this way for everybody. I've known a lot of people that, buy a mesh system, they love it, they say they have no problems, and that's fine. However, I've also installed a lot of mesh systems and, problems still arise. It's not a perfect solution. Actually, I don't know if there is a perfect solution, but having hard wires in your home can really help with this. And that's why I want to talk about the cost of this. Should you look at pulling wires in your home, physically connecting devices, buying a system that's a little bit more robust, having a kind of a hybrid home with stuff plugged in and stuff on the Wi-Fi, and kind of trying to find that balance, because we as consumers have a lot of devices. I go into homes that have 10 TVs all the time. I mean, that's a very common thing. It's not like the old days where you had the TV. You have TVs everywhere. And so if you can kind of do some of the planning things and invest a little bit of money up front, I think you'll have a better solution. So let's talk about that. What's the cost like to do something like this? And is it even worth it? Okay, so let's get to the cost portion of the video. These are the things we're going to talk about today as it relates to cost and planning something like this. So the first thing is going to be infrastructure costs. This is going to be your cabling, future-proofing, that kind of stuff. We'll get into what all that means. Secondly, we're going to be talking about, I call it accessories, but it's basically where's your equipment going to sit? You're going to put it on a shelf, or you're going to put it in a rack? You want, shelves in your rack, things like that. There's a cost involved there. The next thing we're going to talk about is the equipment itself, and that's going to be a breakdown of a router, switch, access points, and IP cameras. These are all things you want to be thinking about from the beginning, so you can sort of plan your costs and what this thing is going to cost you overall. All right, so those are the things we're going to talk about. We'll go through each one of them individually, and then we'll kind of summarize our findings at the end. All right, guys, infrastructure costs. This is really step one, right? It's having a plan, knowing where you want to put stuff. This is the stuff that's in the walls. It's the boring stuff. You can't see it, but you got to know it's there so you can sort of plan around it. So I always encourage anybody who's building a home to talk to their builder and say, listen, do you include any sort of network cabling in your house? Is anything included? And if I want to add some, what does that cost? Usually there is a per drop, typically per location, cost for network cabling. So they're going to charge you, some, like for example, they might throw in 5, and then anything after that is $95 a drop or $125 a drop, right? That's where some of this cost adds up, right? Is this worth it to do it? So these are things, if you're thinking about building, or maybe you have a builder friend you want to ask, how do they do it in your area? Now, typically from what we have seen in the Midwest, we see this cost being anywhere from $125 to $175 per drop, which is expensive. However, here's the thing I'll ask you. How often are you going to use the internet in your house? Probably every day, right? And it's only going to ramp up. So is that cost worth it? We'll talk about that, but that's typically what I see in costs. Okay, so after you get your cabling in place, you kind of pick out where everything needs to go, access points, TVs, whatever. The next thing I want to kind of just point out is some future-proofing techniques. This is putting tubing, like you've seen on the screen here, in your walls to be able to allow you to be able to pull cables to those locations later. Now, again, this is not sexy, guys. You're not going to see it. It is a unsexy cost that your house endures to do this, and there will be a cost. So you need to talk to your builder and find out what he would charge, or she, to add this tubing in your house. And I've seen people go nuts with this stuff. They pull it all over the place. It's like a hamster maze in their house. It's crazy. But it was valuable to them. They wanted to be able to upgrade cabling to the locations in their house after the drywall goes up, and this is the only way, or one of the only ways, that it really gives you the ability to do that. And so, go crazy if that's what you want to do. But there are 2 areas I recommend it. One is going to be from wherever your network equipment is going to sit in your house, right? This is your network head-in. I'm going to talk about it in the next section. From there to your attic. Have a tube that goes from there all the way up to the attic, hidden in the walls. This allows you to, once you get a cable to the attic, a lot of times I think you can, kind of install them or get them to the corners of your house pretty easily. Your home design, maybe you don't have attic space over your whole house, so you might have to add some additional ones, but typically being able to add cables through the attic is a really valuable prospect. I told you earlier, I added cameras after my house was built 2 years after, and that's how I did it. I have some PVC pipe that goes from my basement all the way to my attic, allowed me to run cables very easily. I hate being in the attic, it sucked, but at the end of the day, I wasn't fishing cables through walls. Very, very simple process. So that's number one. Number two is from the outside area where your internet comes in the house, right, where the internet attaches to the house to wherever your network equipment is going to sit. I call that from the demarc to the head end. Right? So here's the scenario. Day one, when you move in, you have regular coax, cable modem in your house, and 5 years after you've lived in your house, your neighborhood upgrades to fiber. How do you get fiber from outside your house to wherever you chose to put your equipment? Well, having an ENT tube run from outside the house to that location solves this problem every single time. You can just have it terminate in an outside waterproof box on the side of your house. It's right where all the utilities are going to be anyway, so it's not going to be this crazy eyesore, and that allows you to upgrade your cabling, your internet connection at a later date. Who knows what they're going to come up with, right? So fiber is very big. Neighborhoods are slowly moving to fiber, so this gives you the ability to do that without having to get really creative about how you're going to get your cable from A to B. So huge bonus to do that. But again, you guys can go crazy with this if you want to. Just talk to your builder and find out what your costs are going to be. When I had my PVC pipe run from my attic, from my basement to my attic, it was $250. That was well worth it to me. I've used it. It saved me so much sweat equity. It's not even funny. So, find out what your builder is going to charge and, work that into your calculations. Okay, so the next thing you need to be looking at as it pertains to cost is where is your equipment going to sit in your home? I typically call this a network head end. But really it just boils down to is where's your equipment going to sit and what do you need in that location to accommodate that, right? So we already talked about some of the tubing and your wiring is going to be pulled to this location because this is where your switch is going to sit, right? So what do you need to accommodate that? Are you going to put your stuff in a rack? Are you going to put it on a network shelf, kind of like what we have pictured on the screen? Maybe you have a built-in closet in your office and your equipment's just going to sit there. That's fine, but be thinking about what you're going to need and what all is going to go there, which we'll get into in the next section when we talk about your network equipment. But I'm talking about the other things, right? Maybe you have a Lutron lighting switch system you're going to install. So you're going to have your little Lutron Caseta hub. Maybe you're going to have a Philips Hue hub so you can control your lights that way. Do you have a Synology NAS? Is there other equipment that needs to sit in there? Are you going to need extended power? No matter what, this location is going to need a power outlet to be able to power on your equipment. And I even recommend having a dedicated breaker for this because you don't want your network tripping when someone turns on a hairdryer. So, that's going to have a cost associated with it. You're going to have to talk to your builder and say, I would like my network area, this network jack, to have its own dedicated breaker. You don't have to go crazy with it. It's just a regular 15 amp breaker, but it's not tied to anything else in the house, which allows you to, not trip it when other things are happening. And I think that's a nice thing to have. So kind of be thinking about what this area is going to look like. Are you going to do a network rack? How big a one do you need? Do you need shelves to put your other stuff on? Do you need additional power strip that maybe mounts in the rack? Or are you going to do a power strip like in the picture here that just, mounts on the wall to plug your other equipment into? There's no real wrong answer here, guys. Everybody's a little bit different as it pertains to what your needs are. If it's just an area you want to I'm going to get it in there, get it plugged in, close the door, that's fine. But be thinking about what the stuff you're going to need to basically make that happen, right? And so once you kind of have the infrastructure in place, in the walls, and you have this area chosen, then we can focus on the network equipment. What type of network are you wanting to build in your house? Let's get that priced, and then we can kind of paint this whole picture for you so you guys can decide if it's even worth it for you. All right, guys, so this is probably the part you were looking forward to the most, and that is how much does it cost to build in a Unifi network in your house? Now, the good news is it's actually not as much as you would think depending on the size of network you need. So obviously every home layout is different. Everybody's needs are different. And a lot of this cost that we're talking about as it pertains to your network is going to be based on the infrastructure costs you picked out later, right? If you have 35 TVs in your house and you want every one of them hardlined, you're going to need switch ports to be able to accommodate that. So that's why I really kind of said a small network versus a large network and kind of gave two sort of starting prices. Now let's break these down a little bit and talk about what's all included in that so you guys can understand maybe where you fit in the mold, okay? As you can see on the screen, I have this broken down into sort of an entry-level network, a very entry-level network, and then maybe a little bit more of an advanced level. And so I wanted to talk about what you kind of get, what you don't get for these price points, because everybody's needs as it pertains to their home network is different. And so you'll see some very distinct differences between these two, but the big one's going to be adding security. If you don't need security and you're just focusing on a network, right? So you're the customer who would normally walk into a Best Buy and buy out a router system. All you're getting is network in that situation. So to me, that's what this kind of competes with. So with this, you're going to get the Ultra router, which I did a video on routers. And if you guys would like to see that, I have a link to it in the description. But basically, I broke down the new Unifi routers and which ones you should choose. This one is a little bit more of an entry-level router in that it can't do security. But it is very powerful. You can run your network. It is your controller. It is going to be able to give you gigabit speeds. You're going to be able to do VLANs. You're going to be able to have the advanced features. Maybe you want to block traffic from Russia. You can do all of that in this router. Okay, and this router is only $129. Very, very powerful, decent option, especially for an entry-level network. Next, you'll see I have the 16-port light switch on there. So we're talking 16 total ports. You're going to need to use one of those to plug into the router. So 15 ports you can use for your devices in your home, maybe run to some TVs. 8 of those ports are PoE plus, and there's a total of 45 watts of power. So one of the big differences between, when you move up the scale in your network planning is with your switch. So in addition to needing extra ports, if you have a lot more PoE devices in your home, you need to accommodate for that power. This switch has 45 watts of power, and they go all the way up to like 400 and some watts, for 24 port switches. So you got to really kind of figure out what's going to be plugged into this that needs PoE power. So you make sure you buy the right switch. But in a very simple network like what we're talking about here, which is 2 U6 Pro access points, this switch is going to do just fine at that. It's going to be able to power even a third if you need a third one. So this entry level at $650 is going to get you a nice router, a light switch with pretty, gigabit speeds. It's not going to do anything crazy, but it's going to be able to do VLANs and all the stuff we talk about in Ubiquiti videos. And you're going to get 2 really nice Pro Series Wi-Fi 6 access points, and it'll all run there for $650. I'll put that up against anything that you could buy at Best Buy. If you shift over to the right side of the screen, what we're really doing here is incorporating a larger network. So maybe you need more wireless access points to give you the coverage in your house, or maybe you're adding outdoor Wi-Fi because you have a pool or something. So we're giving you some broader coverage. It allows you to install more hardline cables, more infrastructure in your house. So you're going to have a few more ports. But the big difference from the entry to the advanced, as far as this slide goes, is you're going to be adding security cameras. So by doing this, you're upgrading your equipment to be able to accommodate and be able to run that camera system. So one of the really nice things about Ubiquiti is they have the UDM SE and UDM Pro. And those devices allow you to be your camera in VR as well as your network controller, plus some other things. They do all sorts of things. But you really do get a lot of value for the dollar. So my recommendation always, if you're planning on doing cameras, is to go ahead and spend the extra $125, $130 and go from the UDM Pro to the UDM SE. What you're going to get for that is some additional PoE ports. So you're getting a little PoE switch on your device that allows you to physically connect your cameras, which typically don't require as much power as an access point, and they're like physically plugging into your NVR. Now, you're gonna have to buy a hard drive for this. You need some storage to be able to record your recordings to, but you can buy like an 8 terabyte hard drive for, I don't know, 150, 160 bucks. Not really a lot of money. And to be honest with you, at my house, I have 4 or 5 cameras in my house, and I have a 1 terabyte hard drive, and I can look back like 3 weeks. I have my recording set to only record on motion, so I'm not recording all the time, but at the end of the day, I can go look back 3 weeks in my camera, in my NVR very, very easily with just a 1 terabyte hard drive. So you don't even need all the crazy storage either. So what we got here is we have our UDM SE, which is going to be your camera controller, your network controller, and it's going to allow you to power some PoE devices. That's $500. It's $499. We have our 24-port standard PoE switch, which is going to have 95 watts of power, so a little bit more power than the other side of the screen, so you can accommodate, some more PoE network devices. So in this case, we have 4 U6 Pro access points, or maybe that's 3 U6 Pros for the interior and an outdoor U6 mesh or something like that. Again, around the same ballpark as far as price goes, and a G4 Pro doorbell, which is a nice doorbell system. So yes, it bumps you up a little bit, but your cost is still really minimal as if you went and maybe hired a professional security company or something like that, which I used to work very closely with one, and their camera systems were easily 10 grand, 15 grand. Granted, that came with monitoring and professional installation and support and some stuff like that. You got some value for that, but the hardware itself was also very expensive once the installer and the owner, put their markup in it and everything like that. I mean, you're spending $500, $600, $700 on a camera. I have the G5 bullets here. They're 130 bucks a camera. They're really nice, 2K nighttime, daytime cameras, waterproof. They work really well. The middle one is their new G4 Dome, or maybe it's G5 Dome. Again, very affordable, very nice camera system, a lot of bang for the buck. And so I am a big believer that you don't have to spend a fortune. You definitely don't have to spend 15 grand and you get cameras, network, and everything. But that's going to be the big difference between these two sides. One is just kind of an entry-level network, and the other side is going to really add some security aspects and accommodate for a bigger network, which requires more hardware in the home. Okay, so I threw this slide together. I want to just talk about some quick calculations. Let's put it all together. We've kind of talked about each one individually, so let's just put it all together. These are just some examples. They're examples based off Midwest pricing, so your pricing could differ from this, okay? And that'll play into your decision, right? I'm encouraging you to talk to your builder, talk to your contractors, find out what this stuff will cost, because that, is a factor. So if you see on the entry level here, we got infrastructure costs of $1,250. What that's really including is 8 network drop locations. Maybe that's a couple bedrooms and your 2 access points at $125 each, plus the conduit we talked about, which I priced at $250. That gets you to $1,250, okay? Then we're talking about simple network head-in. We're not really talking about a big setup here, maybe a shelf, some extra power, some power strips, some just things to make sure everything can come online, and your network's just gonna sit on a shelf, which again, you guys can make look very, very nice. I got that at $200. And then your network equipment is like the entry-level stuff. We're not looking at cameras. We're not looking at a bunch of extra stuff here. We're really just looking at a really nice, powerful, hybrid, part hardwired, part Wi-Fi network. We got that at the $650, which brings your total cost up to $2,100. Now, if you shift over to the advanced level side, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? So I didn't really know how to pick the numbers here, so I just sort of picked what I thought was realistic in this and threw some numbers tied to it. So on the infrastructure cost, you can see we're going up to about $2,750, maybe close to $3,000. And this is including 18 drops, so a lot more rooms, more access points, drops for your cameras, things like that. So there's more of them there at $125 each. Plus I did $500 in conduit, maybe gives you a little more wiggle room for your future proofing that you're doing in this particular case. So that brings your total up to $2,750. Then for the accessories cost, let's talk about, we're doing more of a rack scenario here. Again, nothing crazy on the rack size. Maybe you just need a simple rack with some shelves and some horizontal cable management and some things like that to make it look nice. $500 is pretty realistic for that. With your network equipment, basically what I did was the example above with 4 access points at $160 each, so that's pretty realistic, and then 5 cameras plus a doorbell. So we're talking 5 cameras of the G5 bullets and the G4 Pro doorbell and 4 access points in this house, which brings it to $1,820 for a total of just over $5K. So you can see really quickly how it can add up, right? Now all of a sudden you're comparing spending $5,000 with going to Best Buy and getting what you can get and hoping that it works really well for you. So the question remains, is it worth it? Well, guys, that is going to be 100% up to you because everybody has different needs and wants. Here's what I'll say to that question, and I'll kind of phrase it like this. When it comes to the infrastructure part, putting the wires in the wall, the cabling and things like that, the tubing to get to the attic and be able to add, tubing for your ISP, yes. I promise you, if you spend that money and you plan on using the cabling, you will get a ton of value out of it. It'll save your bacon time and time again, just being able to get cables where you need them to be and having the physical connections in there. Guys, streaming ain't going anywhere for a while, so why not physically connect your TVs? I mean, there's no downside to it other than this little bit of cost we talked about. Does your kid have an Xbox and you're worried about, is it going fast enough, or they're always bitching about lag and speed or something like that? Run a cable to the Xbox, guys. Have him physically connect to the network. It solves a lot of problem, and you're not going to have him barking in your ear near as often because the speeds aren't there. A physical cable connected to a device solves these problems. Now, Wi-Fi is great. Wi-Fi is fast. Wi-Fi is easy. But I promise you, a physical cable in the wall is always worth it. Not only is it going to help you in the nagging case and with your streaming working better, but it's also going to add value to your home. In today's connected world, having a physically connected house is going to be more valuable in the future than one that doesn't have cables. Think about the houses that are 20 years old that don't have this stuff in there. They're less valuable to younger buyers because they want something they can physically connect. So you're going to get your money back just with, value that you're adding in your home. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, as it pertains to wiring in your network versus, just going down to Best Buy and picking up something, this is where it really does boil down to your needs, your wants. I think it's absolutely worth putting cables on the wall, but it might not be worth it having access points, and spending this money on Ubiquity. Maybe you don't want VLANs. Maybe you don't care about the extra security features that you get with them. Maybe you have a camera system that you're bringing from your other home, and so it's just the camera part of it is less important. So, that's really based off of you. For me, when it comes to someone wanting to put a nice network in their house that's going to give you a lot of features and a lot of capabilities for not a ton of cost, I don't think you can really go wrong with Ubiquity. And again, there's other videos out there that talk about which router you should buy. I have one. I know there's a lot of other ones out there. We're going to be doing the same kind of video with switching and access points. So you guys will get to see that here coming soon too. So, the proof, where the value comes from is what equipment you put in there. But I will tell you guys, and I mean this, the entry-level network, that $650 network we talked about earlier, is a really nice and powerful network. It really is. It's going to do a lot. You're going to love having that horsepower and that amount of network capabilities in your home. It's awesome. Even if you don't turn on VLANs, you just use it as a flat network. It's just better equipment. It's going to work really well for you. You're going to like having physically connected devices in your home and having that hybrid network. It is a win, trust me. Now, as you get into the bigger homes and adding security, what you're really comparing that to is, paying someone else to install a security system for you and paying these high dollar camera systems, and things like that. If you compare it to that, spending, $1,700, $2,000 on your network and your cameras ain't too bad. I mean, it really is nice, but your needs will really drive that. So is it worth it to you? That's going to be up to you guys. It is 100%, based off of your needs and your wants. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Please leave comments below. I love answering comments. Tell people what you're building in your house. If it was worth it to you, are you glad you did it? Are there any regrets? It's great to get this stuff out there. We are a community here at Ethernet Blueprint, so your comments don't just talk to me. They help other people who are looking to get these questions answered. So I highly encourage you to leave comments. As usual, like or follow. I probably mentioned that earlier, but we'd love to have you come along for the ride. We're going to be doing more videos like this so you guys can properly plan and build in a great network. And I hope this video helps you. We'll talk to you later in a future video.